Everybody out there, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Steve Dotto here. How the heck you doing this fine day? I am Steve. Sorry, Steve. I'm just getting messages from our the service that we're using here today. April, how the heck you doing?
Thank you. How are you?
I am doing just fantastic. And oh, look, people already recognize. Matthew says, "Happy birthday, April." So there you go.
Thanks, guys.
It is a very happy birthday to you, April. I'm glad that we get to do Webinar Wednesday on your birthday. That's pretty nice. Oh my goodness, the chat.
It is. I think we actually did your birthday on Webinar Wednesday this year too, didn't we?
May well have been. Yeah, it was back in November, back in antiquity. So, folks, we got Webinar Wednesday today. We are going to be talking about Evernote. So I know that a lot of you are always interested in what's happening in the world of Evernote. So I am thrilled to be sharing this with you today. A technical note: we've had a couple of issues over the last couple of weeks with our feed, so we're doing it a little bit differently this week. We're actually using Ecamm Live and using Restream as our broadcast partner. We're sending it through to the multiple channels through it. So forgive us if we're kind of still figuring out a few of the controls. It's been about 6 months that we used Restream since we used Ecamm. Now, are you getting the chat? Can you see the chat happening here, April? The comments?
I can, but I cannot comment here.
Yes, I can see that we don't have the ability to comment. So you're going to have to keep the those feeds open, and so that you can drop links in as we go. So sorry about that, but them's the breaks as we work our way through. So let's give you everybody a little bit of a heads up of what to expect today. It's going to be a typical Webinar Wednesday as far as we are concerned. We have done, this is in our number 165th, I think, of the Webinar Wednesdays. We'll be, in a few moments now, I pre-recorded a nice demo looking at within kind of an Evernote update, and now having used it for about 6 months. Kind of where we sit with Evernote. So while that's running, April and I will be in chat, or at least April will be. I'll figure out how to get into chat, and we'll be replying to you and commenting to you. Actually, I'll set that up as soon as I start the video streaming, and then once the video is done and finished, we will be then answering as many of your questions as we can. I need to do a shout out and a great big thanks to our patrons. You know, Dotto Tech is a community funded channel, and we're supported through the generosity of you folks, our patrons, through the crowdfunding site Patreon. And there's nearly 800 of you that contribute to us each month. That helps keep us on the air, and it helps us to be able to create this kind of content that we deliver for free. Now, Webinar Wednesday is free every week. And we leave it available for a week after we broadcasted originally, and then we take those replays and we load them into our Webinar Wednesday archives, where they are there for the enjoyment and for the use of our patrons. So when you sign up as a $10 patron at Dotto Tech, you not only support us being on the air, but you get some great perks. The main one being you get access to the Webinar Wednesday archives. And this is the 165th of these tutorials that you will have available to you if you do sign up. But to all of our patrons out there that are on board, thank you so much. We appreciate your support more than we can properly express in the amount of time that we have today. All right. Also, we are brought to you, we have a sponsor, which is Restream. Now, we've had a couple of issues with Restream Studio, which are being cleared up as we speak, but Restream still is the broadcast partner that takes our feed and delivers it to multiple platforms. We're actually streaming now to Facebook and to YouTube, and the reason that we can do that is Restream has the ability for us to take a feed from a product like Ecamm Live or OBS Studio and to stream it to multiple platforms at the same time, which really increases your reach. So if you are looking at doing live streaming as a part of your business, then I encourage you to check out Restream, and April will drop a link in to Restream for that purpose there. All right. Where are we, April? Is there anything that I should be addressing before we jump into the video?
I don't think so. Nope. I think you are. I think you are good.
People are complaining that you're not marketing cats, April. I see that.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm not a cat person because I'm extremely allergic. Although my mother did give me a cat balloon today because she's a cat person. So I do.
I used to be the same. I used to not be a cat person, but then we've had a cat for a few years. But the cats are so different than dogs. My cat is a bit of a jerk. always to me. It's like it's very insistent. It's very insistent. But we can talk about that off air. All right, folks. Yes, so Evernote is the topic today. 6 months ago, Evernote did a major update, and a lot of people are a little bit pissed off with Evernote because in this major update that we've all been waiting for, they actually gave us less features. They took some features away. And there's a reason for that, which I will explain in the video, but it gives us a base to grow in the future. Sometimes we have to take a step back and consolidate before we can move forward. And that's pretty much what's happened with Evernote. The video today is about 25 or 26 minutes long. We will start it playing right now. While it's going on, please ask your questions in the chat. As many of them as we, or if you do have a question, if you put a question mark kind of before you type it in, it'll make it easier for us to identify the questions that you want answered as opposed to straight comments in chat. So we'll get you folks to do that, and we will answer as many of them as we can when we return. April, are you ready? We're gonna run that video. 3, 2.
All right.
See you on the other side.
Ready.
All right, let us dive into Evernote's new close. 6 months in now that we've had Evernote 10 released. What are my thoughts as we've had time to look at it? There's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to when Evernote first rolled out. So let's dive into it. So our agenda today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the heart of Evernote, why Evernote is still in many ways the same, even though a lot has changed. We're going to look at Evernote 10 as a new product, not necessarily an upgrade, because so much has changed, even though visually some of the things haven't, but underlying, everything has really changed. We're going to talk about the bad things, the things that people have challenges with, the things that are pissing people off, which there are legions, but there's also a lot of good. Now, I personally am leaning towards the good stuff. There's a lot of things that I really like in Evernote. I've embraced new workflows as a result of the new features and how we're using it. So we'll be showing you that and a little bit about what the future is. Plus, we're going to touch on how we are using Evernote right now. I mean, it's a little bit meta, this particular Webinar Wednesday, because we've been using Evernote as almost a co-host to the webinars for a little while, with me building all of my show notes in Evernote and then using them and referring to them, as you can see I'm doing right now, through the recording of Webinar Wednesday. And then we leverage this, we take this note and we actually use it for our shared document that we send out to you later. So we'll show you that a little bit about that process so you can understand what happens there. So at its heart, Evernote is still Evernote. It's still the tool that I embraced 9 years ago, and many of you have also really invested in. But I think we make a mistake when we try and define Evernote as a notebook, because it's a notebook is very limited in how we apply. How it's used. A physical notebook. You can write almost anything in it. It can be a journal. It can be a diary. It can be notes on keeping you on track of a project. It can be a book that you're writing. It can be an essay. The content can be many things, but you're dealing with some fairly finite ways of entering information and retrieving information from notebooks. You have to write it down, then you have to look through the pages to find it. They're very limited as far as that's concerned. Evernote, because it's based basically on search technology, it is profoundly different. We can have a variety of different media types in Evernote, and then we can retrieve that content from Evernote. I always like to say when I'm teaching Evernote that Evernote gives you what you need, where you need it, when you need it. It gives you access to all of your stuff. So I typically, when I'm explaining Evernote to anybody, don't describe it as a notebook, but I ask you to think about it as a digital bank account instead. Because if you think about it, it stores all of your stuff. All of your valuable data is stored in this bank account, in this Evernote bank account. And we also go to that account to withdraw our information when we need it, but it stores it, it keeps it safe for us, we know where it is, and we can draw on it. And like a real bank account, the more you invest in the bank account, the more valuable the bank account becomes. So if you think about all of your stuff, all of the data that you're collecting over the years, if it's all in one place, that place becomes incredibly valuable. That storage becomes incredibly valuable to you. You've built equity in it. And that's the issue that so many people have. with Evernote is they've built this massive amount of equity over the years where they've trusted Evernote and stored so much in Evernote. So when Evernote makes a profound change, as they have done with version 10 of Evernote, a lot of those people feel threatened. They feel that their investment is being threatened because they aren't going to be able to use that bank account the way that they had originally used it. But just like the real banking world, our bank accounts today are very different than they were 20 or 30 years ago. A lot of the ways we use them is different. So Evernote has made a change as well. I'm not saying that it's going to be good and that it's going to work for everybody, but change is constant. That is for sure. Now, even though Evernote has changed a lot in Evernote 10, and we'll be talking about some of the changes in a few moments, our original Evernote Quick Start, which is actually not original, and I think we've done 4 versions of the Evernote Quick Start. If you're looking to just get started with Evernote, I have developed what I think is the fastest and most effective way to begin to use Evernote. And even though it's using the older legacy version of Evernote as I teach it, almost all of the principles remain identical with how we use Evernote back then and how you can learn to use it right now, as far as getting started with Evernote and getting your head around the concept of how we collect that information into Evernote, the techniques that we use to get it into Evernote, and then how we get that out of Evernote later on. What you need, where you need it, when you need it, I teach that in the Evernote Quick Start, and the link will be in the show note that we share with you. Now let's talk about why Evernote had to make such a profound change in Evernote 10 and what's kind of the genesis of that. The problem that Evernote has is it grew organically. It kind of grew. You know how some modern cities are laid out in a perfect grid and they're very, very efficient? But ancient cities are laid out, they're not efficient. They're serpentine, and there's different neighborhoods and different types of roads, and they're built up at different times, and they kind of organically have grown. Evernote has grown organically. It started out just as a desktop tool, and then it migrated over onto the mobile devices. And back in the day, we used to use Evernote on devices like BlackBerry and in dedicated systems like that. And as the computing world changed, Evernote had to release new versions of Evernote that supported it. In Windows, on the Mac, on iOS, it had to release a web-based version. And all of those things required different teams at Evernote to create and mimic the same functionality that Evernote had in whatever base version you consider. So we'll say on the Mac version, they had to create the same functionality, and they had to create a way to allow these other devices, these other platforms, to access the same information as they were storing, say on the Mac. And that made for a lot of, accommodations. That made for a lot of places where they had to kind of MacGyver together ways for Evernote to work so that it looked the same, it had the same kind of feel, or at least close to the same functionality. And it caused, frankly, tons and tons of problems. It caused us to have our versions of Evernote being released at different times, and we would get a brand new upgrade of Evernote on the Mac, and the Windows user would be going, well, what about us? Our Evernote sucks compared to the new Evernote version on the Mac. And then the new one would come out on Android, and the Mac version and the iOS people say, wait a minute, that Android version's got some features that I've been really waiting for. And they were having to kind of go back and forth, building out these versions with their different teams trying to talk to each other, trying to come to some common resolution. And one team would come up with a great idea, they would implement it, and it wouldn't necessarily fit with how the other teams were looking at things, or it made it difficult for them to access. And oh my gosh, it was a dog's breakfast in Evernote. Something had to change at Evernote because they were racing ahead in multiple directions at the same time. So they basically bit the bullet. With Evernote 10, they said, we are going to pull it back and we're going to build all of our platforms on a common code base. Now this, business-wise, and as a user of Evernote, I can't applaud strongly enough. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of commitment to disrupt all of these different teams and to get everybody on the same page. And you can imagine just how challenging it was technically to do as well. But they did it. And they released Evernote 10, and 10 is the product. So we have this brand new unified code base, which means maybe not the moment that one new product is upgraded, but within a very short window. If a new version comes out on the Mac, the new version will be out on Windows, the new version will be out on iOS. They are going to be all released in a very compressed time frame because they're all being built from the same code base. And that is a huge step in the right direction. Now, unfortunately, as a result of that, there are things that broke. There are a lot of things that maybe didn't break. Maybe that's the wrong term for it. There are things that don't work anymore, or there are new ways of doing things. And to be fair, depending on what platform you're on and how well you use that platform, Evernote 10 was going to be a step back in some ways, because some of the things that you did, especially dedicated high use Evernote users, some of the systems that they used and some of the things they put in place weren't going to work anymore. And it was incredibly frustrating to them to have their systems broken or at least damaged, and having to come up with new ways of doing things, or not possibly be able to do some of the things that they had relied on for all time. But it had to be done. At the end of the day, they had to do that, and the decisions they made, they weren't doing to try and piss you off. They were doing because they had to create this common code base that they can build from. And now we're starting to see upgrades coming on the code base. We're starting to see other features coming back in, and the clarity is starting to come in with how we use Evernote again. Again, it's not going to make everybody happy, but it's working in the right direction. Now, I'm going to start out right now by talking about some of the negatives, which includes the things that they haven't fixed that were broken in the beginning and are causing people the most consternation. And right now, the most consternation that I hear out there with the new version of Evernote, the thing that concerns most people, are kind of historical problems that we've had with Evernote. The inability for us to encrypt notes, to have real high-level security. We have to trust Evernote's online security because they've changed syncing to a certain extent so that all of our data is now stored on the web and we access it, so we don't have local files anymore. So our ability to put in place our own levels of security and privacy for content that should not be online, Evernote's taken that away from us, so we now have to find new ways of doing things. If you say we're using Evernote in the past to save your tax returns, to save all your tax information, what you would do is you would save it on a local notebook, so it was just on your local hard drive and it was never shared to the web. Therefore, far more secure. You can't do that anymore. So what's the solution? The solution isn't to save it online and hope that it's okay. The solution is, well, for tax information, we shouldn't be using Evernote anymore. We have to find another tool. Those are some of the compromises that were made. So that is one of the biggest issues, is where files are stored now on Evernote. And secondly is Evernote hasn't yet given us an effective backup routine. There's no way for us to take all of the information from the web and store it on our local drive to protect ourselves. So we now are in a position where we pretty much have to trust Evernote to maintain the integrity of our data, of the data that we're comfortable storing within Evernote. And that is something that is it's like almost like a cost of doing business. We don't have the insurance policies that we want. Hopefully Evernote's going to deliver those insurance policies in the not too distant future, but those are the issues that I think are front and foremost. Everything else that people are going to complain about, I'm sure there's lots of people mentioning in the comments of issues that they've got with the new version of Evernote. I think all of those affect a much smaller subset. These things that I've identified, I think, are global concerns that we all have. Now, having said that, let's jump in and let's take a look at some of the good things about Evernote in the way that it is working now in the future. So first of all, we now have a unified interface, which I find just wonderful. And I'll just share with you, we'll use as a demo my own account. It's right here. And this is the note that it'll look a little bit different when you finally get it, but that I'm working on for this video. So the way that I create these videos is I write down my ideas here in a note, and then I record the video, and then I clean this note up, and then we ultimately share this note with you on Webinar Wednesday. But it does give us the ability to take a look at the overall interface that Evernote has. So right now we're looking at the desktop on the Mac, but it should be virtually identical to the interface you would get if you're using it in a browser or if you're using it in Windows. And we see down here, down the side, we've got access to all of the different main menu items within Evernote. We've got the new home screen, which I will show you in a moment, the search bar, our favorites, our shortcuts, where we go into the different notes that we've classified as our favorites so that we can quickly get to them. A directory of all of our notes is available here. Our notebooks is available with this link, etc., going on down through, as well as all of our different sharing options. But I'm going to start by showing you what I think is kind of some of the most important things in it, and that is dealing with the shortcuts, is how we get to our individual notes. That hasn't changed too much. Right now we have the ability to just grab a note and slide it into this shortcut bar here so that we can quickly gain access to it. So I've got the notebooks that I'm working on the most here, as well as the notes that I use the most are here. Rather than me having to search for them, I can visually go to them. So here's Webinar Wednesday, and here are all of the notes in this section here that show me all of the notes that I've made in this particular area. And if you've been on with us for the last couple of weeks, you can recognize there's the notes for Can't Beat Kanban. You might have downloaded that, and here's the Beginner's Guide to Podcasting. Here's the note that I shared there for Beginner's Guide to Podcasting. So you see they're all listed out here. Now, one of the things that Evernote has added now is the ability for us to create templates, which really expands and makes it far quicker for you to create structure to your notes. So if I go to create a brand new note here right now, and this is what I do when I create every new note for Webinar Wednesday, I go blank note, and then what I do is you'll see right here that I have the ability to choose a template. I'm going to select the template right from here, and these are my templates that I've created for different types of projects that I work on. And here is all of the templates that Evernote gives us that have already been created. So you now have the ability to basically create templates within your work environment or within your team or for yourself that are customized for the way that you want to collect information, that you can create a consistent interface through Evernote. Love this feature. So here's my Webinar Wednesday notes, and it's got the marketing notice that we have at the top that we're being sponsored by Restream, and this is the format that I go through and I start to fill in all of the information that I want to add. And it's got my call to action asking people to support us in Webinar Wednesday. So I don't have to go and copy and paste that from another note or take another note and save it as and then change the information. But I've got a nice clean template here to work with. So that's one of the really nice features that Evernote has added. They've also really upgraded the entire interface here as far as managing this window, which is your editing window within Evernote. Now, it's interesting here because in some ways I think they've made it better, but they've also taken a lot away from us. So Evernote used to have lots of issues with which fonts people use and the formatting of this particular screen, of our notes screen. And if you're using Evernote a lot, you want to do some formatting in the screen. You want to make your pages look, or your Evernote notes look pretty and demark information so they're easier to read by using different fonts, different colors, tables, etc. So what they've done is they've actually taken away a lot of the features, but they've made the features that are in it very, very usable. So we've got this new insert menu here that allows us to quickly insert all sorts of different data types into the note. We've got our formatting note, and what you'll notice here is in the formatting menus here that we don't have access to a lot of different fonts. We've got some generic names for fonts: sans serif, serif, slab serif, monospaced, script, or handwritten. We don't have access to all those wonderful fonts that you have installed in your computer, but these are the fonts that Evernote uses, meaning if you create a note here in Evernote with one of these fonts and you open this document on any other device, on your phone, on another computer, you share it with a partner on another computer, you don't have them having to substitute fonts for fonts that they have. So they've taken something away from us, they've taken choice away, but they've added consistency to us. And while it might seem limiting to some, I find it liberating because I'm very comfortable sharing these notes. All the notes that I share with you, I use the sans serif font for, and we're off to the races. As far as formatting goes, we have some basic H1 type tags. We can have a large header, medium header, and small header. Another thing Evernote has taken away from us that's driven a lot of people crazy, I see a lot of comments, is the ability to customize the size of the font and the other formatting options. We used to have, under the Evernote menu, a preferences menu that you could open. You see now there's very little in it, but we could open it and we could choose what size font is in our note, what size font is in our headline, etc. And so you would look at this and you'd go, oh my gosh, they've taken that away. What am I going to do? I want to, with the standard note size for me, the main text is too small. I'm getting older. My I like to have a larger font. Let's create another new blank note here and just work from Evernote's basic formatting options and add some features. So we're going to start with types of text, such as headlines, subheads, and other stuff. So here you can see that we've got type of text. There we go. Here you can see that it's all the standard body copy in an Evernote note is sans serif 16. That's the normal text. But if I want it to be 20 point is I want the normal type to be, I can use these presets in order, and I can just change it here. So you can modify anything as you go, of course. So I can change it to 20 point. But here is how we bypass the issue with preferences. I click on the formatting menu. I go down to the drop down for normal text, and here I choose update normal text to match. And when I do that, all of the normal text that we've got within this changes to that new format. So you can see how you can quickly create formatting. So when we create new text down below, it is 20 point sans serif. Do you see how that works? So you've got a lot of control. So in my templates, I created these new normals as we went through. The next thing I want to show you is what about a headline? So we'll choose the headline, and you can apply these formatting options to each of them very quickly as you go through and you create your text and copy. So if we go down to our note here, you can see that I've got right here, this is a large header, and the description is a large header. The body copy here is normal text. So it creates a consistent and simple formatting for me as I create the note. And I find the limited options to be options that I do want to use, and I find them very valuable. I think there's a lesson to be learned by how they have taken away some of our opportunities here in the note menu, but given us consistency that they can then use through the entire line of Evernote products, through all of the different platforms. Is yes, we've lost a little bit of freedom in what we do within the notes within Evernote, but in the loss of that freedom, there is consistency. The fact that we can create content that we know is going to be consistently delivered through all of the platforms. And there's no shortage of additional tools that they're adding and that they continue to add. We've got wonderful bullet formatting tools. We've got checklists. We've got the ability to insert tables. Oh, one of my favorite new features that they've incorporated as far as different data types that we can insert. You can see here that we can insert all of these data types, but you can also insert a video link now coming from, say, YouTube, and it will resolve on the Evernote page. Now, it only works in the desktop version, desktop Windows, desktop Mac. It doesn't work in the web-based version, but take a look here. I've got a video clip inserted in my clipboard. I put that in, and look at that. We've got a video that can actually play right within the Evernote note screen. So this to me is just an awesome, liberating feature to be added. If you're using this for tutorials, for any courses, the ability to be able to incorporate video directly in the notes, I think it's just something that I've been waiting for, and I'm very, very happy that they have incorporated it. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the change that I think is the biggest of all. And it might not really be the biggest. I'm sure that some other features and benefits people are going to find are bigger. But they've got this new location here within Evernote called Evernote Home. And when I click on it, you're brought into a dashboard for Evernote. And this dashboard gives you a quick visual representation of everything that's happening recently in your Evernote account. And you can add, and now they've got a limited number, but you can customize this to customize the background, but you can also go through and you can add different widgets as new widgets become available. Now there's a limited number of widgets currently available, and I have them all installed here, but this is an awesome way to kind of start the day. This becomes your homepage for Evernote. And in it, you can see quick access to the most recent notes that you've edited. The scratch pad, I love. We teach in the Evernote Quick Start Guide a technique of creating starter notes and anchor notes as a way to begin your journey on Evernote. Now, starter notes are notes containing information that you occasionally need, but you need them in different locations. So, for example, going around your house taking pictures of all of the different filters that you've got for your, say, your water filter and your furnace filter, etc., and you store that as a note in Evernote with those pictures, so that if you're at the hardware store and you think, I need a furnace filter, you, instead of waiting till next time you go home and writing down the number, you say, wait a minute, I took a picture of that in Evernote, go search for it, and you've got the measurements, and you can purchase the correct filter. And so that's incredibly convenient. Remember what I said, Evernote provides what you need, when you need it, where you need it. So we teach you and you give you ideas in the Quick Start Guide of how to create these starter notes. There's another type of note that I use called anchor notes. And anchor notes are these notes that are here in my favorites. And they are things like, they are notes that contain a whole bunch of relevant information all packed together in a single note. So for example, let me just find one here, all of our affiliate links. All of the affiliate links, and it doesn't have to be a pretty note laid out nicely and all formatted. This is just a whole bunch of information that I need on a regular basis. So if somebody's asking me about my MixMax affiliate code, I can just quickly go into this note, grab it, and I can change it if the URL changes, and I can share this page with others, with other team members, so they can access the same notes. So that's an idea of what an anchor note is. Well, with this scratch pad, it's probably time that we look at a third type of note, because this is our scratch pad notes. Basically, any ideas you have, you can mark down here, right here on the Evernote homepage, and you can then take those ideas and you can apply them somewhere else, or automatically you can create a note from them, which I think is just awesome. This gives us, because typically speaking, if I want to create a new note, if there's something I just want to write down, I will store that in a note, but then that note kind of gets folded in with all of the other notes. It doesn't stay top of mind. If I use a scratch pad, I can mark down that note, ideas for podcasts, that sort of thing, and it's there until I do something with it. The problem with ideas is it's a great idea to write an idea down, but if that idea gets buried down in a stack of other information, it might never bubble to the surface again because you've forgotten about it. It's easy to forget things. If it's here on this scratch pad, it's always there in front of us until we do something with it, which is intentional, which I think will then allow it to be far stickier. It'll be something that we're more likely to act on. I like that feature. We could also pin a note. Now, this is the note that you're working on that's most important at any time. And as you can see, that right now what we're working on is a new version of our Evernote course. So this is actually all of the content that's going to be going into a new version of an Evernote course, which we are working on. And so I've got that available to me at all times. And then all of my recently captured documents. Evernote is a vacuum cleaner where I basically take many pictures or screen captures using the Evernote web clipper. And these are the latest ones that I've grabbed that are for a variety of different topics. There's receipts for software that I purchased. There's documents, contracts. There's a great note on how to, an article that I clipped from somebody else that's on how to start a side hustle. So all of the different recently captured information is here, and you can sort through. You can see which are images, which are documents, which are audio files, if I've saved any. I don't know if I've saved many audio files, and emails that I've captured as well. So I love the concept of the homepage, but I use Evernote all the time. Some people might find it distracting or it might not fit within their workflow, but if you use Evernote as much as I do, living here, having it available to me with this quick snapshot is a nice option. It's one that I'm increasingly appreciative of, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what new widgets they may come up with over the next little while. We're already probably 22 minutes to 23 minutes into this demo, so I should start wrapping things up. I can't show you nearly everything that we have within Evernote. I didn't touch on the mobility applications, etc. But before we leave, I should talk about the things that Evernote is still the king of, is still just kind of reigning the roost. And that is, first of all, using the Evernote web clipper, being able to immediately grab any piece of information from the web that I see and store it in Evernote for the future. I use the Evernote web clipper every day as I'm doing research for all of our different content, and I would frankly be lost without it. And that extends to using the smartphone to capture information as well, taking pictures of ideas or sharing, if I do research and I'm on my phone, sharing those documents into Evernote as well. Evernote as a vacuum cleaner, pulling all that information into my digital bank account. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, the most effective mechanism for doing that there is. So I'm going to wrap things up with one other aspect, which is the sharing of notes. And we've been kind of doing that through this whole demo right now. You've been looking at the note that is embryonic. I'm still working on the text of the note and what I'm going to share. But I've got here a note which we will publish and send to you all that are signed up for this webinar, and you'll be able to view it in your browser. This is something really important to understand is Evernote is a publishing platform. Is you don't need to have Evernote to share a document like this with others. So I can compose it all, taking advantage of all of the formatting and the ability to collect all the information into a shared Evernote note, save it all here, and then you take that note and you can share it. It creates a unique URL. Because all of our information is stored on the web within Evernote, they can quickly create a shared HTML page, a shared web page with the content that you shared. Now there's a few limitations, such as it won't display a video. It'll just put a link in the place where we put a video. But this is a document that I can share with all of you. If I make any changes to it and edit it, next time you open it up, all of those edits will be in place. So this is a fantastic publishing platform that you can use for a variety of different purposes. We deliver entire courses as shared Evernote notebooks to people. You can use it to that extent. You can use it for instructions. There's just a bewildering number of options for sharing notes from Evernote to the public. And that is something which I think is vastly undervalued in Evernote, but it's something that I value a lot and we obviously use a lot. So you'll get a real good understanding of it when you get our email after this webinar today with the shared note. You'll be able to look at this exact note. Now it won't look quite the same as it is now because I'll have edited it. I will have added value. I will have added more links. I will have taken out some of the pictures. I will have formatted it slightly differently, but you're getting the same note that I'm working on. What a terrific way to share knowledge and to share information. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about before we go is I know a lot of you come to this and you're ready to leave Evernote, or it just doesn't work for you. And even though I've determined that Evernote continues to work for me, I recognize that there are some warts in it. There is some things that are just, it's been a bridge too far for some people. So if I was going to leave Evernote, what would I do? Where would I go? Great question. And I won't specifically tell you where I will go, but I will tell you what my criteria would be for deciding where I would go. I would go from Evernote to an ecosystem. I would choose to stay in the Google world, and I would use Google Keep and Google Docs to backfill what I do in Evernote. Or I would go to Apple Notes, and I would stay within the Apple ecosystem. Or I would go to Microsoft and use OneNote, or I would go to Zoho Notes. And all of those decisions are based on where I live, where I use the other applications, the other tools that are available to me. I don't think I would go to Notion. Notion is a different product. A lot of people like to look at Notion as an opportunity, but the way that I work with Evernote, Notion isn't the answer. It's a wonderful product. It's a brilliant product, but it would require me to completely re-engineer my thought process, and so it doesn't really fit for me. But I certainly respect those that it does fit for. But the criteria is going to be how well it fits with the rest of the system. I've built my current system around Evernote. So if I was to pull Evernote away from it, I would need another anchor to build my system around. And I believe that the best way to do that would be to anchor it within an ecosystem rather than in a single app for the future. So that's food for thought. Now, I know we've only scratched the surface. We'll be doing more on Evernote, obviously, coming up over the next couple of months. But let's jump into the Q&A and see what you all think. There we go. We are back. Hey, April.
Hey there.
I forgot that I actually have to manually switch us back. But now I know.
Let's see.
Do we have a few questions?
I actually don't know if you're going to get to all of them.
There's no way. There's no way that we can get to all of them. I just saw them coming through. And first of all, thanks to everybody that was answering questions within the chat and helping each other out. As usual, our community is just awesome from that perspective. But yeah, so that was an overview. Sorry, I made an editing error in the middle of it. I left my video up when it should have been gone, but I don't think we missed too much of the stuff. But eye-opening, I think, with all of the different things going on with Evernote. And in all of the comments that I saw, people complaining about the things that, and I don't mean complain, I don't mean like you're whining, but the issues that they have are the issues that I expected to see. I expected to see people having issues. Evernote changed the internal linking of the notes, how they do it, but that's an advanced feature that advanced Evernote users use. And when I said that advanced users are the ones that paid the price the most, they are, because they use the most features and they had the most things broken as a result. I just wanted to, kind of bond a little bit with those who have not been satisfied by some of the things Evernote's changed, and respect that you're suffering and you're in pain, and that you've lost something that is incredibly frustrating to you. All right, April, I think we should just, how much time we got? We got 20 minutes. Let's get through as many questions as we can.
Okay. Let's go. So Silicon Beach Properties is asking, my Evernote web spins and spins all the time. Is it Evernote, or it's because I'm 20K worth of notes?
I imagine it's probably because you have 20,000 notes. If you're using the Evernote
Sounds
web
like my
version,
email.
Yeah, it's like your email. But so because it's not stored locally on your hard drive anymore, it's all stored on the web, so that it's got to sync. It's got to find the changes those notes. I imagine your desktop app is going to work better, and that's what I imagine is the issue with your web version. I don't have that many notes, and I've also got incredibly high speed internet, so I don't notice it. But that would probably be my suspicion.
All right. Tassol is saying, I need a tree-like folder subfolder system for my note management. Do you think it may come in Evernote?
No, never. Evernote's always going to have a very flat file structure. Evernote will give us, there's only 3 levels of hierarchy in Evernote. There's the note, there is the notebook, and then there's a stack of notebooks. You only have 3 levels of hierarchy. You can demark your notes in a variety of different ways, including, most importantly, tags. So people who need a really hierarchical structure where they have multiple criteria that a note can be searched on, they will end up embracing tags. But tags are kind of an advanced Evernote feature. We used to teach it a lot and talk about tags a lot, but it turns out that according to Evernote's research, I think only 2% of users use tags. Everybody else kind of just uses notebooks. And the other thing is Evernote has very powerful search built into it. So typically speaking, by the nomenclature you use for naming your notes or learning some good Boolean search techniques, you can normally find and surface whatever it is you're looking for within Evernote without visually searching through a hierarchical structure. Evernote, from the very first days, really flew in the face of the nested folders that we've had on our desktop for creating a visual interface for organization. So it's never going to be there. If tags don't work for you, if you absolutely need to have them stored in those little boxes, Evernote is not the tool for you. But I would encourage you to think about better ways to do it than storing things in those little boxes.
Okay.
What are you laughing
at? Nothing. Just say it's nothing. Nothing. We have we have a.
Did we start a folders versus tags war?
No. We had somebody like coming in and sharing their affirmations, and I was trying to block them, and I could. They had said like 5 things before I could block them from the feed. Okay, so, anyways, the Natus World. Any way to save the Evernote clips in a doc or a PDF? You
can save in the premium version. You can save your notes as PDFs, not as .doc though.
All right. Do you know if they have plans for collapsible outlines?
I don't know what he means by collapsible outlines, but if you mean an outline processor that kind of compresses everything the way that you can do in, say, some presentation packages, no, I don't think that that's planned, but it could well be, but I don't see it.
I'm thinking like Asana hierarchy, you know how you can collapse things like that.
Yeah, you
could. It's like an outline.
That's what it is. I don't see that coming as a format, but I don't have any insight.
All right. Any compound interest on that Evernote bank account? Funny.
Well, it is. Information that's stored months and months or years ago that you can still use today. I look at that as compound interest. It's the value of it. See, that's the thing about it. It gets more valuable the more you store in it. It's just like a real bank account. It's because when you surface, when you bring something up that saves you another search or creating some new content, that's just money in the bank.
All right. John's asking, how can you download all your files from Evernote if you had to change platforms?
That's the Evernote has. That's one of the issues that we have is we don't have a backup function and we don't have a global export function right now. You have to actually. There is a way to do it, but not out of Evernote 10. You have to go back and install Evernote 7 and then export it from there.
All right. Anna Dro is asking, having problems with.
By the way, you can still do that currently. I don't know how long they're going to allow people to move forward and back at will with the versions, but you can go back to Evernote, the previous version, to do those things.
All right. Having trouble with clipping data and images from genealogy websites. How do you do this?
Does the Evernote web clipper? Just go to Dottotech. Just go to our YouTube channel. Look up any of the videos on the Evernote web clipper. It works like a hot damn.
Having trouble using the page capture. I used to be able to capture parts of a page. I have a Mac and now it only captures whole page. Anyone else experiencing this?
No, I'm not experiencing it. It does all the selective capture.
It's probably a setting. I would imagine it's a setting.
But you also might be, sometimes people, no, it's not a setting. I think what might be happening is you might not be using the Evernote web clipper, but you might be using the Evernote system extension. There's a difference. And we actually talk about that in one of our videos. But if you're looking at the very top of your menu, there's an Evernote little icon. That's not the icon you use. That's in your system settings. It's the one that you have installed in your web browser. That's the Evernote web clipper.
Alrighty. Bobby is saying, I can't seem to get the Evernote menu bar icon to remain there to use it without first opening the Evernote app. I adjusted the settings, but it doesn't seem to respect. Is it me or is it new?
Yeah, no, there's a little bit of a navigational issue. And I noticed that I sometimes get a little bit confused. I think he's talking about the sidebar is depending on what you're doing on the Evernote note, the sidebar is going to display different information. And so, for example, that center notes column isn't always there. Sometimes you just have the first column. And I don't know what they've done with the interface. I haven't kind of figured out what causes it, but it's not just you. There's a little bit of inconsistency, at least in my mind at this point.
My Evernote shows the video in Evernote, but only places the link on the web page itself. What am I missing?
You're not missing anything. I said that in the video, in that the embedding a YouTube video in an Evernote note only works on the desktop version. When you export that note on into the web version, you'll just get the link. You won't have the video that plays back. That's the difference between the web version and the desktop version.
I've been using Evernote on Windows via the browser interface. Is that better or worse than the Evernote application?
I prefer to use the Evernote application. That's just me. I use the browser occasionally. For example, right now I'm in a beta program for some new features that Evernote has. I want to keep my desktop version with the last stable release, and then I'll use the browser version for the newer one. So that's how I do it. But I prefer to be in the desktop version.
All right. What if someone later deletes the YouTube video? Does it disappear from your Evernote note or does it stay there forever?
Yeah, it's not. We haven't downloaded the video into Evernote. It's just the resource linking back to YouTube. So if the video is removed from YouTube, it disappears. It'll be just a broken link. People will click on it and it won't work.
All right. My Mac says my version 7.4 is up to date, whereas the browser has updated to 10. What's up?
So you've got to go to Evernote's home. You've got to go to Evernote site and you've got to download the new version and install the new version, because as I said, it's a new code base. It's a new application. So Evernote, you've got the most current version of the old software. So you've got to download the new software in order to get to 10. So all of you that said that when you look at your desktop version at 7.0, you have to go and you can't just update your old version. You have to download the new version.
Do you think Notion is an Evernote killer?
No, I think Evernote is an amazing application, and a lot of people use it, but it's a different data structure type, and it's not a place that you collect information the same way as you do within Evernote. It's really hard to articulate. That's one of the challenges with Notion, is it's hard to define what it is, but it is not. It would not. When I look at my definition of Evernote as your digital bank account, the place that has all your stuff when you need it, where you need it, that's not what Notion is about. Notion allows you to compose your information in different views and view your information in different ways. That's actually a pretty good way of doing it, mentioning it. But Evernote just gives you access to that information. Notion has far more formatting, far more layout, data, where you can have little modules of different data types all on a page that you can customize. Totally different. It's much closer to Airtable, Notion would be, than to Evernote. Evernote's closest comparisons would be other notepad clipper type applications like OneNote, perhaps Keep. Those would be the only ones that I would say are similar.
All right. Can Evernote clip the information and save the URL?
Yeah. When you clip the information, it does save the resource URL. When you clip a whole page, the URL is there, or you can just clip the URL. So yes, it knows where, it'll remember in the metadata where it's come from.
Okay. Can you access the scratch pad on your iPhone?
I don't know. I haven't tried. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look. Sorry. I've been so focused on the desktop version. I don't know. Keep talking amongst yourselves. I'll play with it. I don't think so. Go ahead.
Do you want me to ask you the next question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, sometimes
see, now because I'm in the beta version, I don't know. Because I'm in the beta version, I've got other things. I don't see the scratch pad here. No. Okay, go on.
All right. How well does Evernote work with Microsoft ecosystem like Outlook, Planner, and To Do?
It works fine with it. If I lived in that ecosystem, I would probably choose to use OneNote if I'm not committed to a platform. But Evernote will fit fine in almost any ecosystem. It's got that ability. But if I was starting fresh from scratch, I would just use OneNote.
All right, and just so you know, our friend Edwin said Scratchpad is not on iOS.
Yeah, it's the home screen is not here. That's why. So yes, thank you.
Okay. Evernote 10 still have business card scanner and store function?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Okay. On the smartphone, yeah. The camera app is pretty much the same.
Why would a freelancer business use Evernote over a dedicated project task management system?
You wouldn't. Evernote's. Right. I would never use Evernote as a project manager. I would never use it as a task list manager. I would never use it as a word processor. I wouldn't use it for those things. It's a notepad application, and it's a notebook application. It's a place that you store the information. You don't manage programs from within Evernote. If you're doing that thing, the conversation is you're looking at ClickUp or Asana. If you're looking at kind of the do-it-yourself type applications, or something even more advanced, like a Basecamp or something like that. Evernote does not replace any of those.
Okay. How do you use Evernote with the? Oh, I already answered that. Sorry, there was a second question. How do tags add something more than just the regular search feature?
Well, tags allow you to classify, and how do they add more? That's a really good question. I don't know how to answer that. Some people like to. That's a too difficult question to answer because it really gets into the semantics of how you structure your systems. There's a really famous blog post by Michael Hyatt on how he uses tags and how he organized his entire Evernote campaign by tags. And it blew people's minds when they first saw it. They thought it was so genius, this layout. And you can still find the post. Check Michael Hyatt Evernote tags. And it's a wonderful post. But there's been a huge backlash to people saying that's not the way you should be using tags because it's too rigid a structure. Evernote has a kind of a fluidity to it. So if I was thinking about building systems that I wanted tags, I would look at what Michael Hyatt said and then look at the results that people have had and the comments that have come back out of it. Tags started out as something that Evernote thought was going to be one of their most important and compelling features. And it, as I say, only about 2% of people are using tags to any great extent. So it's sliding slowly into the background and being replaced by search in most cases.
All right. Are there any plans for a replacement Outlook clipper that you know of?
I don't know. I don't know what Microsoft is planning on doing.
Any plans to do an OCR to text feature like Microsoft OneNote has?
It does. Evernote takes everything that's in a graphic form that it can find as text and it converts it into text. I have a picture of a wine bottle that I took back 10 years ago when I first installed Evernote. I was in San Francisco. I had a good bottle of wine. I took a picture of the wine bottle, and when I search for wine, it finds the word wine in the label and it brings it up. If you have a picture of a store in the background in Evernote and you type in the name of the store, it will find it. It takes it a little while to parse the information, but once it's done, Evernote searches everything on your page. It's so cool.
Can you open a note in a separate window as in the old version?
Yep. That's what I'm doing when I do the demos. The demos that you see when I'm recording the video and you've got the note on the side of my screen, that's opened in a separate window.
How does copy internal link work?
Copy internal link is broken, so it's not working properly right now, as far as I know. I think we have a few users here who will use a few 4-letter words to tell you how it's working.
Do you know if the old shared note delete bug is corrected?
I don't know.
All right. Let's see. I think, believe it or not, that's it. Like a lot of the people have answered some of these in the chat.
Yeah, I see a lot happening in the chat. Thank you, folks, for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
How
there was one spot, to be honest, you guys were all talking at once and it went boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, wait a minute.
So I did see a couple of questions about what's happening with Evernote Made Easy, since we've got lots of people here who have taken that course. I have outlined the new version of Evernote Made Easy, version 5. I have written the outline for it. I've started to fill the content for it. It's going to be a slightly different course than Evernote Made Easy before. We're kind of going back to our roots. It's going to be delivered in Evernote as opposed to in Thinkific. It's going to be a simpler thing. I've having done 5 versions of teaching Evernote, I really recognize that what we have to teach when we're teaching Evernote is what the potential of Evernote is, not how to use Evernote, because people are going to take they're going to build their own system into Evernote, and not one of us, not 2 of us uses it the same way. So you just have to understand what it is and why we would do things that way. And that's what we're working on. As far as release dates, we have another course that we're releasing next month, which you will hear about on the mail list, which is in a totally different direction. And then Evernote we'll probably be looking at launching it. What's that? April. We'll probably be looking at late May for the initial offering of it as we start to do the webinars. And so the new version should be done by June, and everybody should have it. And everybody who's bought Evernote Made Easy in the past, you will of course be upgraded for free, because that's the way we roll. And and you can thank April for that, because she has been, can I say nagging? But you have been. Is it fair to say that?
I've been nagging you about what? The course?
Evernote, about getting the Evernote course out.
Yes, because all of you, I get all of the feedback from everybody. So I am the connector to, the email, and I tell you, messenger.
You're the messenger.
The messenger. Don't kill the messenger.
That's right. I don't. It's your birthday. How could I do that?
Folks. I know. Yes. Thanks, guys.
A little bit of business before we go. First of all, thanks to Restream for sponsoring this episode. And I think that this combination of using Ecamm and then using Restream as the delivery platform has worked just gangbusters. I've heard almost no issues as far as technical issues. Some people had a little bit of blurry video occasionally, but my gosh, we've been rock solid as far as the feed goes. So way to go, Restream. Awesome job. And my thanks to all of the patrons out there, those of you that support us here at Dottotech. We would not be here without you, so our thanks to you. There will be a email. Those of you, if you haven't registered for this webinar, even though it's being streamed live, if you haven't registered for it, you won't receive the replay email with the shared note in it unless you register. So April is dropping the links for that. We will then, a few hours after this is done, we will be sending out that shared note. Next week's going to be fun. It's just going to be a lot of fun next week. It's the return of App Wednesday next week, and I have 3 guests who are each sharing their favorite free apps. That's our theme. Your favorite free apps. That's what we're going to be doing. And we've got a great mix of guests coming on next week that I will have a lot of fun teasing, and you will have a lot of fun watching being teased. That's it. April, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
All of you, thanks so much for joining us today. Till next time, have fun storming the castle.
Bye, guys. Take care.